Chinese palm-sized amplifiers for 99 euros confidently claim, "We sound no worse than high-end." On my channel, Premium Hi-Fi, we've repeatedly stated that budget Chinese amplifiers based on TPA 3255 chips are simply destroying the high-end industry with the quality of their sound. Is that really the case, or are we mistaken? Today we're visiting Guntars Smiths. Guntars professionally designs Class D amplifiers, assembles them and ships them all over the world from his website tcrust.com. In addition, Guntars has a YouTube channel where he shares his experience in building Class D amplifiers, measurements and other audio engineering tips. So, the topic of today's discussion is, can a budget Class D amplifier based on the TPA 3255 outperform high-end equipment? Guntars, the floor is yours.
Well, I think that marketing today knows no boundaries, and it can claim all sorts of things. But still, let's probably clarify what we mean by the term high-end. For example, if I ask you, what is high-end?
From my point of view, high-end is very high-quality, expensive equipment that's housed in a very beautiful case, but often it doesn't always relate to high-quality sound, at least as I understand it.
Well, when we said let's make a recording and talk about high-end and talk about the TPA 3255, I also asked a question. What is high-end? On the internet I found how it's defined, let's say, by a professional, because high-end still has some kind of definition. And my suggestion is this. You'll read out the main principles of high-end and we'll take a look at this particular amplifier. Does it confirm or not confirm?
Agreed. High-end audio equipment is a premium class of devices designed to achieve the highest possible sound quality with special attention to engineering solutions, materials, and specifications. The main goal is to reproduce sound as close to the original recording as possible with minimal distortion and coloration.
So that's it. Keywords. No compromises, good components, good ones. A good case, everything is kind of there, and then it gets deployed. And let's go through the points, read out the point, and I'll make a brief comment. Let's go through each point and see if it matches or not.
So, key features. Number 1, sound quality. Very low level of total harmonic distortion, often less than 0.01%.
So the first thing is very low distortion. Today, almost any amplifier has low distortion. And this parameter, 0.01, is what the most advanced studios ask for. They don't require more than that. If we take the TPA 3255, the specification states 0.006. Well, that's no problem at all.
That's even better.
That's theoretically better from a marketing perspective. And yes, it's better for marketing. Read the next ones. So the first point matches.
So, for the first point, high-end is good. The second point is a wide dynamic range and a high signal-to-noise ratio.
Well, you know, I'll ask the question, what power supply came with this amplifier? The key factor is voltage, either 36.5, 5A or 48.55A.
And I can check right now, I have the power supply right here. So let's take the power supply. 2 amps, no 5 amps, 32 volts.
Well, anyone who knows Ohm's law can calculate what power we can get. So our power supply is 32 volts multiplied by 5 amps. Well, divide by 2, right? We have 150 watts.
Per channel.
Per channel. Here, a high dynamic range is claimed. What does that mean? High power. We have standard power. High power, I would say, is 300 watts or more. If it's ideal for home audio, so you can listen to any floor standing speaker, we need about 500 watts per channel. And then it breathes easily and everything works. So it doesn't pass the second point.
So it's not high-end anymore because of the power supply?
They skimped on the power supply.
They cut costs. Sure, you saved 99 euros or dollars, but now it's not high-end. Third point, accurate tonal balance and natural timbre.
Well, basically they use good output filters almost everywhere these days, but only for one specific speaker impedance. Yes, we have either 8 ohms or 4 ohms. But let's say there are designs that use so-called post-filter feedback or place the feedback after the filter. Then that also matches.
This amplifier specifically doesn't have post-filter feedback technology, but many modern amplifiers based on the TPA 3255 already use post-filter feedback, and that means post-filter.
So theoretically we can achieve this. So specifically for $99, no, but for a higher price, it's possible.
For a higher price, we can get good tonal balancing. Fourth is clear localization of sound sources and depth of the soundstage.
Because it uses a single chip, a good chip, one lithographic process, and good supporting components. No problem. Well, the only thing is, if you showed this amplifier again, you need to pay attention to its quality.
The volume controls.
The volume controls are usually inexpensive here.
Inexpensive?
Well, you can use an expensive one too, yes.
All right. Regarding my experience listening to amplifiers on TPA 3255, I can say that amplifiers that cost around $200 already create a pretty solid soundstage. And 3 or 4 sources of sound, apparent sources of sound. So basically that's already high-end, but for $99, well, it won't create much.
This point is met. This is component selection.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on to the second, probably paragraph section. Build quality, the use of premium materials, for example, oxygen-free copper, high-quality capacitors.
So what does marketing do? Marketing says we have Nichicon capacitors. Why? Because everyone knows them. There are many other capacitors. There are resistors. And if you look at it properly, I think they use the lowest grade components. Otherwise, you can't make that kind of price. And another question is whether they use components from such good manufacturers or not. But overall, everything works. Overall, everything works.
All right, but there are even amplifiers. Here's one of the latest ones, which we have a review of on our channel. It's the Dock Audio Ampapa D1. Inside are Rubicon capacitors.
They're good.
They're good, yeah.
But mostly, what do the Chinese do? The Chinese know their market, and they know that if you mention a Rubicon capacitor, everything will be fine. But nobody talks about what kind of resistors or capacitors are actually used there. The whole hi-fi world knows Rubicon. Yes, everything is correct there, but basically you need to be careful with that. The best way is when you buy all the components for such a development from authorized distributors who work with the manufacturers, because then you can be sure that all of them have passed this quality control. Each component has a parameter called mean time between failure, the time until a failure occurs. And by knowing how many components you have, you can basically calculate statistically when it will break down, approximately. Of course, this doesn't rule out Murphy's Law, but overall, you can calculate the reliability of the device.
All right, the next point, number 3, is a rigid case for vibration suppression. Well, the case is rigid. But does it suppress vibrations, Guntars? Does it really?
Well, let's put it this way. In my opinion, the case is very good. Very good. Yes, I would say it's a high-end case. It's solid, powerful, good, beautiful, anodized, top level. The case is very good.
There's a TPA 3255 chip inside, but at $99 they must have cut costs somewhere. Alright, okay. The final point about build quality is excellent thermal management for durability. There are holes on the sides here, that's probably for thermal management.
Well, what do you think at full power? The full power of the TPA 3255, if everything is set up correctly, can actually deliver 250 watts per channel clean.
Well, with this power supply, I think we're not risking anything.
No, but if we're talking about high-end, with this, we're not taking any risks. But we don't have enough dynamic range. There's no power, so we failed there. This case is fine, but if we wanted to make high-end, we need more power. So in terms of design, this kind of construction can't produce high power in any way.
So I'm already starting.
No options.
So I'm starting to conclude that, theoretically, the TPA 3255 placed in a quality case with good components and powerful power supply is basically a blow to high-end.
No, not in terms of heat. Then you need to use a different architecture. All these little boxes that come from China, absolutely all of them are too small to be properly cooled. But we need to calculate. So the chip itself has 2.5 watts of pure losses. Just the heat and the circuitry are about the same, 5 watts of pure heat. And so you installed it, and this heat doesn't go anywhere. It only cools passively through the case. But if you put this box like this, right, we get an air draft, and then it starts to work and heat up properly. So I would make this kind of amplifier with a stand and set it up like this, and then it works. If you set it like this, that's it, it doesn't work. So the design is good, everything is done right, but you need to set it up vertically.
Guys, take note of this. All right, let's move on to the next point. So the third paragraph is the philosophy of design. Discrete components are often used instead of integrated circuits for better control. I don't know what discrete components are, but that's why we have Guntars.
Well, that's it. That's marketing, yeah? Everyone who works with electronics knows that if you make integrated circuits, they're more precise. The process is repeatable. All the components inside are made with a single lithographic process, and with proper quality control, today integrated circuits are better than discrete components. Except in cases where we can't cool them. If you put too many powerful transistors in one package, it's impossible to cool them, and then it overheats in certain spots, just like with discrete components. But basically this point, I don't agree with this point.
Okay.
But by the way, this point is often used by those who say, we'll put a discrete operational amplifier here, buy it for 30 euros, and replace it. From an engineer's point of view, this is absolutely wrong. You're being deceived.
But, on the other hand, you have the opportunity to change the operational amplifier and influence the character of the sound, and fall into the illusion that the sound is changing.
But actually, no, because everything that changes can be seen on the oscilloscope. Absolutely everything. There's no such thing as you put something in and nothing changed on the oscilloscope. If you hear it differently, well, that's unlikely. Our hearing is actually poor. Your cat definitely thinks you're completely hearing impaired. And let's say, when I was young, I measured my hearing and I could hear up to about 18 and a half. I recently measured it, 14 kilohertz max.
I also have a maximum of 14.
Yes. And many of our listeners are also over 40, some over 50, or even older. Yes, so that's how it is with our hearing.
And 14 at our age is if we take care of our hearing. And if we work with a trimmer at the Dhaka or in the garden and don't use headphones that protect our hearing, or if we work with a chainsaw or work in a noisy factory. 8 to 10 kilohertz is our maximum.
And if you're a professional musician, it's the same thing.
Yes, a loud stage of course doesn't spare your hearing. The next point is linear power supplies or advanced switching circuits with ultra-low noise.
It's important, I would say, that nowadays linear power supplies are outdated. Mostly they're outdated. And why is that? Because there's a large transformer. It has a lot of windings. Windings, well, of a modern good linear transformer. For the power amplifier, first of all, it's big, it has to handle power, it has a primary winding, there's a lot there. And there's this resistive resistance and there's a secondary one. And when we have such a big bass, the resistance is high. It sags like that. Yes, our bass gets dampened, or you have to use a very large transformer, which is expensive and heavy, and use a lot of large capacitors. And basically, there was a necessity in the past because of class AB. It had high losses, so you had to use something with low losses. A large transformer has an efficiency of 96 to 98%, even if it's bigger, and so on. But today, well, what do you think? How much power can this unit actually deliver?
I think it's similar to what we have here. 2 units, each delivering about 100 to 150 watts.
No, this one is good.
This one is good.
This one is good and can deliver 450 watts.
450 watts for 2 channels, right?
Yes, and it has a phase corrector. Yes, that's required for powerful power supplies, so it uses all the power from the main 220 correctly. And it's a resonant type, which means it changes the frequency and controls the voltage at the output. It always has a sine wave, since the resonant current through the transformer is also sinusoidal, so it has low noise. This is the best architecture for it. Chip power amplifiers, especially ones like these. Well, a power amplifier, a power supply unit, that's when it works at full capacity.
So if we take it, well, okay. And how much does a high quality power supply of this type for a TPA 3255 cost? What do you think? How much could it cost?
What do you think? How much could it cost, in your opinion?
It looks quite high quality and expensive. I think it will cost at least 150 euros.
It costs 35 euros with delivery.
35 euros is a very cheap price.
Why is it cheap? Because it's made by a manufacturer that produces them on a huge scale.
Yes.
It's not for an amplifier, it's just for dedication, but it's built with such an architecture that it can deliver a peak for 3 or 4 seconds. Those 450 watts, 4 seconds is a very long time, it's completely. It works completely and doesn't overheat at the same time. This is another advantage of this amplifier, that there is such a unit and it's produced in huge quantities.
If we replace this with that, then we fulfill one point regarding the power supply.
And the amplifier is also approaching cooling.
But will we put it sideways?
Well, I have to take a look at it there. We need to experiment whether it will cool down or not.
Yes, okay.
I think in principle it could and might cool down.
All right. The next point is the minimum length of the signal path for the sound frequency.
Basically, I agree, especially considering that amplifiers are reaching a point where, well, making them any better is going to be very difficult. It's complete, so this amplifier will work as long as it functions, and you don't need anything else. But when it comes to the preamplifier, the streamer, and the digital to analog converters, they're constantly changing and improving. New chips are getting better, and as for Bluetooth, it's always evolving. I would say that this is a very proper architecture, so we have a very simple, powerful, high-quality, high-end amplifier. It just sits there while we change, and most importantly, invest in the preamplifier and the streamer. Well, there are different variations, and we also have speakers.
The source and the speakers.
The source, the speakers, right?
Yeah, okay, all right. Let's move on to the 4th paragraph. Amplification. High current for working with demanding speaker systems. Well, we'll take it apart again. High current, probably about that.
So, those who have looked at the chip itself, it can be used in 3 modes, but I will only talk about 2. You can take a single chip and connect it in a bridge configuration to get 2 stereo channels. In that case, this amplifier will work well with 4 ohms, but even better with 8. It also has a different architecture. If you put 2 chips here, which isn't expensive, and connect them in a bridge configuration, no, in a parallel bridge configuration, then it can work with a 2 ohm load, and then 4 ohms is easy for it. If you have a bad crossover that's barely working, let's say, and its resistance drops in a certain range, down to 2.5, it will still play just fine.
The next point is stable operation with different loads.
It's essentially the same as what I just explained. Stable operation with varying loads is the same as high current.
Yes, all right. Class A or quality AB circuits are commonly used. Modern Class D solutions, such as ICE Power, Hypex, Encore, are also recognized in the high-end segment.
Well, we're now getting to the point where, well, Class A is like a steam engine, and I don't even consider Class A as an amplifier at all. If enthusiasts like it, sure, but when we talked about having a high dynamic range, that's about power. Just imagine what would happen with Class A, and if it's a 300 watt Class A, it's like 60 kilograms per channel. Maybe per channel, I don't know. Yeah, it's very heavy, very big, almost like a tube amp, so Class A is a separate niche. I wouldn't say it fits high-end, it fits marketing.
To marketing, if someone likes riding a steam locomotive instead of an electric train, well, go ahead, no one is stopping them.
And there are a lot of legends that nothing sounds like Class A. No, Class A has problems with bass, and it has temperature issues. There are problems with durability, problems everywhere. There's a problem with power consumption, and so on and so on. No, not Class A. Modern Class AB amplifiers are good. Class AB is preferable. The biggest problem is that with power above 150, the cost increases sharply. Objectively, the cost and weight go up. And it turns out that we once again fail to meet the dynamic range requirement. And now the most modern amplifiers are Class D. But they've reached the point where they're better than what a person can hear. They exceed all of these limits.
Requests.
They work very well with pulses, power supplies, weight, size, everything is decreasing. And it turns out that in the future, 90% of high-end amplifiers will be Class D. Yes, they will have good power, good components, good filters, good chips, good manufacturers. They will all be Class D. If not today, then tomorrow or within 5 to 7 years. That's it.
Let's move on to the fifth paragraph, connections and functionality. Balanced inputs, outputs, and XLR, but right away, no, there is no XLR here.
Yes, it's a compromise since there's no room in such a small box. Well, XLR is a good, reliable, proven, high-quality connector. And it's used in all studios and everywhere, as well as balanced inputs too. You can make hybrid connections, you can also use professional equipment to some extent. Sometimes I think it's about compatibility. This is also important for high-end equipment. With high-end equipment, I can connect any device easily. But here, it's like this. And these are too thick. They're packed too tightly here. If I put them in, they'll be too thick and won't fit. It's a compromise. What can you do?
Well, by the way, okay, this option costs $99, and there are, for example, IMA-80 amplifiers that cost around $200. They already have XLR, I think. The Dog Audio Papa D1 at $169 also has XLR.
Well, they're closer, yes. The specific data is that, well, their box is a bit bigger.
Of course it's bigger, and definitely thicker too.
That means expenses for mail, for logistics.
Higher,
but
the price is twice as high.
Well, not 99, at most 99. So there must be a compromise, and there is.
Sometimes a modular upgrade design. No way here.
At this price, we throw it away.
If something has changed in this world, if something better has appeared, that's it, right away.
Yes, but let's be honest, there will be a few more points here. So if we sell it at this price, so we save on service. If you bring it in for repairs,
I won't even send it in. If it burns out, then everything goes straight to recycling. It's pointless otherwise.
even if you buy it, it'll burn out on the first day and you'll write it off as an experiment. Yeah, you won't bother.
I won't bother emailing anyone like, guys, my $99 amplifier burned out because it's pointless and a waste of time.
What can the manufacturer do? In general, it should work. I can save money on quality control at the factory. I can save on a lot of things. If it works, great. If not, you'll toss it and I have no risk.
Yes.
If I sell a branded, good, expensive one, so I can't do that.
No, there must be a maintenance service center.
Absolutely, and that's an important thing. $90. For developed countries, of course, that's pocket change in terms of risk. I can buy it, play around with it, and throw it away. But if I buy something for $1,500, I expect to have a warranty.
It'll work for 20 years.
It'll work for 20 years.
If something breaks, they'll replace it.
Yeah, the volume won't start creaking in 6 months and so on and so on. That's the difference between high-end and a contender for high-end.
A strong high-end contender. Hey, that is well said. Alright, good. The sixth and final point is price and exclusivity. Usually the high cost is due to hand assembly and research. But here, well, no.
When we're looking for the very best, well, the very best will always be relatively expensive. And here we need to talk about, well, from a business perspective, if we take all the people and the entire market, let's say high-end, we'll look at those whose annual income is about $100,000 and above. Those whose annual income is $1 million will be there. Guys, I need it.
Bring me 2 Class A monoblocks, please, and I'll connect them and heat my house with them.
No, he'll say, bring it, I want to listen to really good music, but that's all I need. They'll show him and present several options. Well, then this one. Yeah, it's a completely different business there, but the one who has 100,000 there, well, 100,000 is a good salary. That's an educated, smart person. In the West, not everyone.
Yes.
That person will choose for himself. He will watch. At the very least, he has a serious mind. He will also talk, and he also expects a relationship. He also expects it. What you set for him. It will sound like you ask the right questions. If I want to buy, everyone will ask, what kind of room do you have? This kind and that kind. How do you watch? Well, I like to watch television in the evening and sometimes listen at the same time. Yes, one scenario. I want, I don't know, to drink whiskey once every 2 months, but I want it to sound good for me, yeah?
Mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, right? The question of whether you need to do a major renovation in the room or not is important because you can set everything up and install it without a major renovation, but we're choosing the right equipment. Yes?
All right.
So no one here talks to you about high-end, you find it yourself.
Something's shaking over there.
No, it's not shaking. It's those twist-on connectors. Yeah, everything's fine there. Well, all right, that's a good specimen, by the way. A very good one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Quite good for this price, for $99. So it's a good little device. They're often released in small batches or by boutique brands.
That's where the price comes from. What is the price made of? It's made up. Either you have a well-polished design that's produced in hundreds of thousands, and then you get a good price and a good device, or it's very beautiful, everything is carefully selected, and so on and so forth. If it's made in small amounts, it will always be expensive.
All right, good. I found it very interesting. Guys, so leave your comments about what you think of the TPA 3255 and how the TPA 3255 is destroying high-end. And now I want to ask Guntars, what kind of amplifiers does he make? Guntars, what kind of amps do you make and what are they?
Well, I guess we need to look a little into the past. When the first Class D amplifier designs appeared, we, together with 2 engineers, also developed our own Class D amplifier at an early stage. And it was good, but back then the technology hadn't advanced that far yet. Many components weren't available, but it laid the foundation. Well, it gave us the opportunity to gain basic knowledge to evaluate the solution that exists today. Today, my business model is actually making kits for those who want to build something exceptionally good, but using ready-made modules. I'm a system integrator today because it's impossible to beat companies like Ice Power or Purify. Hypex, it's impossible. They had major investments. If at the moment when we started developing, we had someone to support us with investments, we would have been there too. But everything has its time. So at that moment, we didn't have it. But now I make different amplifiers for various applications, and I also work as a blogger. Well, what can I show you? Basically, I make, let's say, kits. Here is an assembled kit like this. You buy a good Ice Power unit, connect it to the connector, and you have everything except the case. The case is quite decent and lightweight. You have an almost high-end amplifier, but let's say it doesn't match a high-end amplifier in terms of, for example, an exclusive case.
Yes.
But because of that, you save a lot of money and so on.
So the sound will be high-end, but the case will be simple.
Yes, but there's a fairly large niche of people who already have high-end. It often happens that they already have high-end. But they had their first speakers, then they bought others, now they have better ones, and the old ones are just sitting somewhere, so they buy. They want to have a good amplifier for that. They basically have 2 sets of electronics. Then there are different engineers. No, not just engineers. There are those who are really interested, but they're not specialists. Because even such basic things as connectors, to make them, you need a whole set of specific tools. Not just one, I would say 15. There are a lot of different types. There are options with a fan without, but that's another story. What else? In the future, I believe that the quality of amplifiers today is so good that the only real issue lies with the speaker system. Well, there are 2 options there. There's a passive filter. It's necessary, but it's not good. If there's some way to get rid of it, even existing speakers can sound a little better. But multi-channel amplifiers are from different ones, and TPA 3255. It's very good in terms of quality, but it lacks power. Well, that's always the case, power. For one amplifier, it should be close to 500 watts. Just so you understand, if you feel that 100 watts is a bit lacking, the relationship there is logarithmic. That means if you want to double the sound pressure, or the volume as we say, you need 4 times more power. If 100 wasn't enough, you need 400. If you have 100 and 200, well, it will seem about the same.
Yes, doubling the sound pressure is plus 6 decibels.
Yes, but that's a lot.
Yes.
In this regard, 500 watts of power is optimal. In any room, such a 3-way floor-standing speaker will sound absolutely perfect.
Even at low volume, which is very important.
Yes, and the lower the volume, the more headroom you get. It will drive it easily and sound great.
Well, here I completely agree. When I experimented with small bookshelf speakers and weak 10-watt amplifiers, we used that. It seems like everything is fine, it seems like it plays and you can hear it, but you always want to turn the volume knob to the 2nd or 3rd level because you can't hear the bass, you can't hear the highs. Our ears aren't flawless. As Guntar said, we hear low frequencies very poorly at low volume and high frequencies very poorly at low volume. And we only start to hear normally when the sound pressure reaches 90 decibels. That's quite loud. Right now, as I'm talking with Guntars, the noise level here is about 70 decibels. 60, 60, 70. Well, there are peaks up to 70, let's put it that way. Yes, something like that. So just imagine how much power an amplifier needs to handle all that volume up to 90 decibels with good quality.
Well, that's why this volume knob should be logarithmic. Otherwise, when we turn it, the volume increases linearly. If you use a linear one, at first there's nothing, then suddenly it's a lot. We hear logarithmically.
Logarithmically.
Logarithmically, yes, and pressure is the same way. People often tell me, I have a 100-watt speaker here, I'll put a 400-watt amplifier on it, everything will burn out. The difference is that this parameter, which is called 100 watts, is root mean square. It's a thermal parameter. And the difference between a sine wave and a normal audio signal has a crest factor of 8. That's in terms of temperature. So my 100 watt can steadily handle 800 watts. Yes, it will distort, but it won't burn out under any circumstances. 400 watts is the absolute minimum, and with these 400 watts, that's why I'll say that the TPA 3255 doesn't cut it for high end.
And what if we connect two in parallel bridge mode?
There are speakers that have 2 coils, that's when it's high end. Because we send each channel to a coil from each channel. That's when it'll really play, yeah. But those are specific cases. If we're talking about development level, then yes. He's good. I have a whole range. The Chinese are trying, they have what's called agile. They're doing something and sometimes it works out. I picked out all these blocks, the ones that more or less work. But each of them has a little flaw. Why? Well, there could be 2 strategies. Like I said, we invest a lot in development and that costs money. But then you get a polished, great product. Or we save a bit on development. And so, for example, they made it so you can adjust not the volume, but the sensitivity. But again, it's not quite finished, just a little bit unfinished. If you set it to maximum sensitivity, everything is fine. If you lower it, that means there's a problem with voltage stabilization and adjustment here. They miscalculated a little bit. Yeah, something slips through a bit. You can use it, but it needs some work. They made an excellent unit here. Everything was done very well. The bipolar power supply sounds good here, but in terms of temperature, this is where I made improvements. You see, they put these little washers kind of by feel, but then it doesn't hold firmly. I had a block like that. It exploded because if it's not placed tightly against the chip, it doesn't get cooled. And then it burned out with an explosion.
Wow.
I couldn't even fix it because it burned out under the paint. Those boards are too expensive. They cost 30 euros, so I'd need to work on them for a week
to fix it.
And I thought about what I could do with these blocks, different kinds of things. Well, it's impossible to compete with the Chinese just for one reason, logistics. They have government subsidized logistics. Any inexpensive segment like that is immediately killed off by everyone. And I came up with the idea that I would sell them as warehouse sellout. For those that are basically drafts, I'll sell a box with a good tested block if anyone wants it. Usually they use things like this. Someone with expensive equipment gets approached and they say, this sounds almost like yours. If you put in a good power supply and it gives out 2 times 250, that's 2 times 250. Honestly, and this power, it plays some kind of mystical role. If you compare it to a 100-watt amplifier, it loses. Power matters a lot. It loses.
This amplifier looks beautiful inside.
It has these things, you see, so that it holds firmly with 2 screws.
Pay attention, what a beauty.
This is a good one. This is one of the best Chinese amplifiers currently available today. It's relatively inexpensive, has good power, easy to assemble, and it will work.
Interesting.
But as you ask, what does a proper 500 watt amplifier look like? What do the Chinese write? They say this one is 2 times 300.
2 by 300. Well, that's a running joke in China, so there's that.
No, in theory it can only put out at 4 ohms and 2 by 250. But this one can put out 600. It should look like this. Just look at the size of its components, the size of the filters, the size of everything. But this one is honest. It's an industrial unit, the kind that's made for professionals. And there's a difference. Yeah, the whole box is smaller.
Well, there's really nothing to compare here.
So let's not be so easily fooled by such attractive specs.
Well, you always want to save some money.
So high-end is good, high-end doesn't do that. If it has certain specs, it definitely meets them.
High-end has a problem too. Guntars, you listed all the specs, but with high-end, specs are never shared. Just claims like uncompromising solution, super sound. How are you supposed to understand that? Great job. 6 sections with specs, and it's clear what to focus on.
Well, those specs exist somewhere. I think the seller definitely has them. The one who makes high-end gives you this big box. He must have the specs. It can't be otherwise.
Well, okay. I'm sure they exist, and those who manufacture really do have them, but for those who buy, it's not quite clear. So, is there something to look at, like a list, 6 paragraphs? I don't think so. And there's no standard.
Well, I would say, really, anyone who wants good sound needs to find it themselves. A specialist. How do you tell a specialist from a non-specialist? A specialist doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. He gets into your problem and thinks. He doesn't throw around parameters or measurements. He doesn't immediately say that your apartment needs to be remodeled or that nothing will sound right. That's not true. If everything is set up correctly and arranged properly, you can get very good sound even in a standard 5-story building. If you find such a specialist, you can immediately tell because he doesn't need to assert himself. He gets into your problems and thinks. He thinks about how to solve them in the best possible way. He usually doesn't suggest the priciest option. He offers a certain optimal compromise.
An optimal solution.
He doesn't badmouth others who have produced something, or, I don't know, say that some company is all some bad word. He never says things like that because, first of all, it's not true. And today I can say that musical equipment, sound equipment is good for everyone. If you look closely, I have one channel where I watch Erin Sondeo, who especially talks about different acoustic systems.
He has purchased a very expensive system for measurements.
Yes, he has a very expensive system for measurements, but if you do such an average measurement, honestly, every reputable brand and manufacturer has different categories and columns. You could say they sound the same. Yes, maybe a little bit here, a little bit there, yeah. There are classes like a 3-way floor speaker or a 2-way. There's a little difference here and there. There's this kind of tweeter, that kind of tweeter, something different. But overall, there really aren't any bad solutions.
I agree with that. Most modern hi-fi equipment, amplifiers, DACs, optical systems, headphones, sounds good. The question is, which of these sounds will suit your taste more?
Someone once asked me, what equipment should I choose? Do I need high-end gear or which speaker should I pick? I would say you should choose a speaker that touches some primitive essence inside you. And if you listen to music and there's a nice round bass, it's powerful enough, clean and so on. When you feel energy pouring into you, everything is right. And don't listen to those who say they're too close to the wall or a little farther from the wall. If in that place this inner essence touches you, you have the right acoustics. If someone says it's the wrong music, forget it.
The most important thing is that you like it.
That's the most important thing. Yes, that it touches you. Not just that you like it, but that it touches you, that it hooks you. Yes, that it hooks you.
Well, so guys, a huge thanks to Guntars for such an interesting talk about amplifiers, about the parameters you need to pay attention to when choosing an amplifier. Thank you. I'll put a link to these parameters in the description for you. So that's all for now. Come visit us in Riga, and may the force of the right sound for you be with you. Thank you, Guntars.
Thank you.